They thought Earth was gone, wiped clean, silenced. A minor planet barely worth remembering in the grand archives of the Galactic Union. The official report labeled it as unsustainable, Category 7 collapse. Some bureaucratic translation for they probably blew themselves up again. So, when the Union's scout ship drifted into the Sol system for a routine survey, they weren't expecting to see anything alive, let alone powered. No heat signatures, no comms, just drifting satellites, scorched cities, and a moon base rusting in silence. Then came the signal. Just one word. Remember. The scout ship never made it back, but the Union heard that signal bounce off 100 relay satellites, echo through long-dead frequencies, and reach ears that hadn't thought about Earth in centuries. Some laughed. Others deleted it from the system. But a few. They started to worry, because humans were never good at dying quietly. Commander Ren Arden hadn't seen Earth since he was 10. It was still green then, still had oceans, clouds, and sunlight that didn't burn your skin, before the unification wars, before the orbital strikes, before the great silence. Now he sat in the steel heart of the Drake's Claw, a dreadnought forged in secret, beneath the surface of a dead Martian colony. Red dust still clung to its underbelly like dried blood. He stared at the screen in front of him. There it was again. Remember, that was their message. The only one humanity sent after 200 years of silence. The only one they needed. Behind him, engines roared to life. Gravity buzzed under his boots. Across the hangars and decks, men strapped into armor that looked older than they were, patched and repainted 100 times. They weren't soldiers. Not really, just survivors. Miners from Saturn's moons, engineers from Europa, prisoners from Pluto's penal colonies. All of them had the same thing in common. They were tired of being forgotten. "Status," Ren growled, voice low like gravel on steel. "Warships ready?" said Kaiden, a man with half a face and a scar that looked like someone tried carving a map into his skull. "All 4 squadrons prepped. We've got nukes, railguns, and the Grav Lance. If it flies, we can kill it." "Good." "Destination?" Ren stood, shoulders heavy with the weight of command. "The Galactic Assembly Hub. Let them know Earth isn't dead. Let them choke on the silence they gave us." Kaiden hesitated. "Sir, that's a suicide run." "I know," Ren said. Then, after a beat, he added, "But what the hell's the point of surviving if no one remembers who the hell we were?" Across the galaxy, the Union kept peace the way a vulture keeps order, by picking clean anything that screamed too loud. For a long time, humans had been ghosts, whispers, old stories about a species too violent to be useful, too stubborn to stay dead. But whispers don't stay whispers forever. As the Drake's Claw and her fleet broke out of orbit, the outer relay stations detected them. A fleet of old Earth metal, patched with alien tech, burning hotter than regulation levels allowed. Warnings were sent. Then threats, then demands for surrender. No reply. Not until Ren opened the channel and looked straight into the camera. Tired eyes. Jaw clenched. Behind him his crew stood like shadows. He said 2 words. "We're back." The first battle didn't last long. The Union sent interceptors, drones with no soul, no fear. They were torn apart by men who had nothing to lose and everything to prove. No tactics, no negotiations, just steel, fire, and 100 years of rage packed into missiles and war cries. Human ships didn't dodge. They rammed, they burned, they screamed. By the time the Union understood what was happening, the Drake's Claw had already broken into the outer wall of the Assembly's defense grid. Ren didn't care about peace talks. He wasn't here to be heard. He was here so that when the galaxy looked at the stars, they'd see fear again. Not because humans were monsters, but because they were forgotten. And now they remembered. The Drake's claw didn't bleed like a ship should. It screamed. With every shell that rattled its hull, every explosion that licked its flanks. It sounded less like a vessel and more like a beast in pain, but it didn't stop moving. Built from the skeletons of 12 wrecked colony ships and stitched together by men who'd never known a day without war, it was a flying coffin powered by anger. The closer they got to the assembly hub, the more the galaxy took notice. Systems that hadn't spoken Earth's name in 2 centuries were suddenly alive with chatter. Military protocols were revived. Battlecruisers launched. Whole fleets mobilized to crush a threat they didn't understand anymore. But the thing about threats, you can't crush what's already broken. Ren stood on the command deck, eyes locked on the star map burning red in front of him. They were surrounded on all sides now. No turning back, no way out, exactly how he wanted it. "Status?" he asked, his voice hoarse from shouting over the last engagement. Kaidan wiped blood from his cracked visor. "Lost 3 ships, Ironwake, Bellows, and Cradle. Survivors were pulled into the Claw's lower decks. We've got wounded, but they're fighting anyway. Bastards wouldn't stay down even if we told them to." Ren nodded. Not out of pride. There was no room for that anymore, just acknowledgement. They weren't here to win. They were here to be remembered. "Fleet formation?" he asked. "Second wave coming from the Theros vector. Union flagships, heavily armored. Shields like gods. We're outgunned 10-1. Ren gave a bitter smirk. "They're bringing gods to a graveyard. Let's make 'em bleed." He turned to the wall-mounted comm panel and pressed it. A red light pulsed. "All hands. This is Arden," he began, voice low but steady. "They thought we were dead, forgotten. Some story kids whisper in the corners of galaxy maps. Ghosts. But look around you. You think ghosts build warships like this? You think ghosts carry nukes on their backs and crawl through the wreckage of their own history just to put their boot on the neck of the stars?" Silence. Not the empty kind. The heavy kind. The kind that meant they were listening. "They erased us from memory, but memories don't stay buried. They rot, they stink, and one day someone digs them up. That's us." He paused. "We're not here to win. We're not here to save Earth. Earth's already dead. We're here to make them choke on the dirt they buried us under. Let them know. We remember. Let them remember us too." He dropped the comm. "Sound battle drums," he said. Kaidan raised an eyebrow. "Drums?" "We built these ships from bones, Kaidan. Let's give 'em a funeral song." The Union fleet moved with cold precision. Every angle calculated, every ship synchronized. They looked like a wall of gods. The human fleet looked like a riot. Scavenged engines belched fire. Their shields flickered like dying stars. They flew erratic, brutal, suicidal patterns. No grace, no symmetry, but for every Union ship, 4 humans came screaming, dragging explosive cargo strapped to makeshift fighters. Some didn't even have weapons, just jagged hulls turned into battering rams. The stars went red. When the first Union cruiser fell, it didn't explode. It shattered. The Raven Child, piloted by a mute Martian named Strath, dove straight through its shield matrix and detonated a full uranium payload from inside. No goodbye, no final words. Just fire. Union command faltered. They weren't used to enemies who didn't retreat, who didn't surrender, who fought like death was a relief. The galaxy had evolved past brutality, past war. Humanity hadn't. They'd just gotten better at hiding it. The Claw's bridge shook as another blast slammed into their left wing. Ren gritted his teeth as metal groaned underfoot. Sparks rained from the ceiling. The ship screamed again. "Stabilizers offline!" Kaidan shouted. "We're spinning!" Ren grabbed the railing. Cut the left thrusters. Let the spin carry us behind the frigate on Vector 5. Kaiden blinked. You want to use the spin? That's insane. I'm not asking. Do it. Kaiden growled and slammed his fist into the panel. The claw bucked, twisted, and with a shriek that sounded almost alive, it whipped behind the Union frigate. Point-blank range. Fire all plasma turrets, right now. The claw's underbelly split open like a mouth, and beams of molten death spat out, carving the Union ship in half before it could even register what happened. Ren wiped blood from his lip. He didn't remember when he'd started bleeding. He didn't care. He looked out across the battlefield, dozens of ships burning, drifting, or exploding into nothing. He watched a single escape pod shoot past the viewport. Inside, a Union officer screamed as his ship collapsed behind him. No hope, no salvation. Good. Let the galaxy see what happens when it forgets where it came from. An hour passed. Then another. Ren didn't sit. Every report that came in brought more names. Friends gone. Ships lost. Decks flooded with fire. No reinforcements. No mercy. Just like Earth. He stepped into the war room alone. On the wall was a cracked, barely functional display of Earth's last transmission logs before the silence. Video feeds of cities turned to ash. Families crushed under rubble. Children with no air. Ren watched them all, one by one. In one clip, a boy clung to his father in a subway tunnel as the roof collapsed. He rewound it, watched it again, rewound again. His knuckles turned white. I was that boy, he whispered. But there was no one to hear him. Back on the bridge, Kaiden stood with a limp. Half his armor melted. Assembly hub is in sight. We're the only ship left with weapons. Ren nodded. Then we finish this. They flew in low, straight through the planetary defense grid. Alarms screamed. Artillery rained from orbit. But the claw didn't slow. Its engines were melting. The gravity stabilizers were offline. Half the ship was on fire. And still, it flew. As they breached the upper atmosphere, Ren looked at the assembly itself. A floating city of glass and light, pure and untouched, built on the backs of species it conquered and civilizations it crushed. He hated how beautiful it was. Target? Kaiden asked. Ren stared. The council tower. Blow it straight through the goddamn clouds. They locked coordinates. One last payload. One last roar. The claw dove. The Union scrambled every gun they had. Thousands of beams lit up the sky, tearing chunks off the claw. Decks exploded. Air rushed out. Men were sucked into space, screaming. The ship began to disintegrate mid-fall. Still, it flew. As the city came into range, Ren stood tall. Fire! The missile launched from the heart of the claw, not a weapon of precision, not elegant, just rage packed into metal. It hit the council tower dead center, the top half vaporized, the lower half crumbled like a kicked anthill. The claw didn't survive the crash. It broke apart in the sky like a burning angel. But the galaxy remembered. When the dust settled, the Union sent drones to the wreckage. They expected no survivors, but they found Ren, broken, burned, but alive. They chained him, dragged him to the remains of the assembly hall, put him on trial before what was left of the council. You defied a peace that held for 2 centuries, the judge said. You slaughtered innocents. For what? Ren raised his head. So you'd remember who gave you peace in the first place. You've destroyed entire fleets. Do you know what we'll do to your people now? Ren smiled. There's no people, just more of me. The judge hesitated. You think this changes anything? Ren looked at the stars through the broken ceiling. It already has. Because across the galaxy, signals began to stir. From abandoned Earth outposts, from hidden colonies, from places thought dead. All repeating the same word, remember. They kept Wren underground, somewhere beneath the ruins of the assembly hub, beneath the twisted glass and shattered stone of a city that once ruled star systems. They dug out a prison. Or maybe it had always been there, built for the kind of enemies the Union swore it no longer had. Now it had one. Wren sat in a metal chair bolted to the floor, his wrists clamped in steel cuffs that bit into raw skin. The cell was silent. No air vents, no hum of electricity, just stone, rust, and heat. They wanted him to sweat. They wanted to break him. But they didn't understand something simple. He'd already been broken. Everything after Earth was just endurance. The door hissed open. Not footsteps, just the soft glide of Union boots, lightweight, quiet, efficient, a luxury Wren had never known. A tall figure stepped in, blue-skinned, no nose, 3 eyes, each blinking out of sync, a member of the Aelari Tribunal, the Union's oldest race, supposedly wise, supposedly peaceful. Wren had seen their warships melt asteroid belts. "Commander Arden," the being said. Its voice was like water running over glass, smooth, inhuman. "You've made quite the spectacle." Wren looked up. One eye swollen shut, the other sharp as glass. "Good. You destroyed the assembly tower. You built it on the bones of people like me." The alien didn't blink. "You are a relic of a time the galaxy has moved beyond." Wren chuckled, dry, hoarse. "That's the problem with forgetting history. You keep getting surprised when it punches back." The alien paced slowly. "The claw is gone. Your fleet is dead. You've proven nothing but humanity's inability to evolve." "I wasn't trying to evolve," Wren said. "I was trying to remind." The Aelari stopped pacing. "And what does Earth want now, Commander? Revenge?" Wren leaned forward. "No, you don't get it. There is no Earth. There's no council, no flag, no anthem. Just us. The ones you didn't kill, the ones you forgot, and the ones who are coming." The alien stared at him. "Coming for what?" "To answer the question you should have asked a long time ago. Which is? What happens when the only species you couldn't break remembers how to fight?" The Aelari said nothing for a moment, then turned and walked out. Wren smiled again. Let them fear. Let that fear spread like rot. They moved him 3 days later, not back to the surface, deeper, into the old tunnels below the capital, where the Union used to conduct black site interrogations during the expansion wars. He wasn't shackled this time. No, they were trying something else. Psychological pressure. His new cell had walls of glass. Behind them, holographic projections flickered and shifted constantly. Earth cities burning, human children crying, ships exploding. Every image was recorded. Real. Wren stared at it for 4 hours before speaking. "Your mistake is thinking this breaks me." The AI embedded in the wall responded instantly. "It is not designed to break you, only to awaken you." Wren laughed. "You're already wide awake, aren't you? You just didn't want to look in the mirror." The AI adjusted the feed. New image. His face, younger, maybe 16, covered in ash, blood on his hands. A street in ruins behind him, the day he lost his family. "You've seen death," the AI said. Wren's smile vanished. "I was born in it." "You believe this justifies your violence?" "No," Wren said. "It explains it." The AI paused. "You have no remorse? For surviving? For killing thousands?" Wren's eyes burned. "You keep counting ships and cities like they were people. You've forgotten what people feel like. Maybe that's why we scare you. We still bleed." Above the surface, the Union Assembly, fractured and leaderless, tried to regain control. Emergency meetings were called in temporary domes, Languages screamed across comm channels. Some demanded Ren's execution, others warned against martyrdom. A few, the smarter ones, said what no one wanted to admit. If there's one Ren, there are more. And they were right. On the edge of the Karthos Drift, a mining colony went dark. On Virex 9, a weapons cache exploded inside a Union command post. On Io's black ice vault, a video message was recovered. A human man in a cracked helmet, holding a detonator. "We remember," he said, just before the feed cut off in fire. Ren didn't organize these. He didn't need to. All he'd done was light the match. In his cell, Ren counted the seconds between shifts in the holograms. He noticed the pattern. Every 4 minutes, a 2-second delay. Power cycling. Maybe the system was aging. Maybe the Union was slipping. Didn't matter. Weakness is weakness. On day 12, they sent in a human. Female, cold eyes, Union uniform. "Name's Lieutenant Aaron Holt," she said. Ren didn't respond. "I fought in the Mars Rebellions," she added, "before you were even in command." Still nothing. "You're a relic, Commander. You're fighting a war that ended a long time ago." Ren leaned back. "And yet, here you are, sitting across from me in a ruined empire, trying to convince me I'm wrong." She glared. "You call this an empire? The Union brought peace." Ren's voice dropped. "Peace bought with silence, with fear. You didn't build peace, you buried noise." Erin slammed her hands on the table. "You think humanity deserves another shot after what it did to itself? To us? I watched men burn cities for food. For water. For sport." "So did I," Ren growled. "But we didn't give up on each other. You did. You ran to the first race that offered comfort and bowed. That's not peace. That's surrender with pretty lights." She stared at him. "What happens next, then? You burn the galaxy?" Ren's eyes narrowed. "No. We remind it what fire feels like." By week 3, word spread that Ren hadn't cracked. He wasn't offering strategies. He wasn't begging for a deal. He wasn't apologizing. He was waiting. One morning, the entire power grid across the prison dropped for exactly 7.3 seconds. Just enough time for Ren to hear it. A knock. From inside the wall. 3 slow taps. 1 fast. Code. He almost smiled. That meant someone got in. The next day, Aaron returned. She looked tired. Dirt under her nails. Hair pulled back. She sat down across from Ren. "You think this is going to start something, don't you?" "It already has," Ren said. She slid a device across the table. It buzzed. A simple hollow projector. Ren didn't touch it. Aaron activated it. A list of transmissions, coordinates, videos, cell after cell of humans rising. Not armies, not yet, but people, fighters, saboteurs, whisper networks, whole colonies on the edge of the Union refusing to send taxes, some waving Earth's old flags like holy relics. "You built a religion," Aaron whispered, "and you don't even realize it." Ren's voice was steel. "I didn't build anything. You did. Every time you erased us. Every time you called us animals. Every time you let Earth burn while you watched from orbit." He leaned in. "I just gave them permission to say no out loud." Aaron was quiet for a long time. "You're going to die in here," she said. Ren grinned. "Maybe, but I won't be alone." In the cold halls of the Assembly's wrecked heart, the Council finally voted. Ren Arden was to be executed, publicly, on the anniversary of Earth's fall. To close the chapter. But as the announcement spread, so did the signal. We remember. Not from Earth, from everywhere. They gave him 7 days. 7 days until they dragged him out into the center of the broken assembly plaza and put a bullet through his skull. broadcast live across 100 worlds. Justice, they called it. But Wren knew what it was. It was fear. Fear wrapped in ceremony. Fear dressed up as law. The same fear that had once driven the Union to orbit Earth. Watch it burn and do nothing. Now they wanted a clean ending, a final page. And Wren was the ink, but they underestimated something they never understood. Humans never end quietly. The prison was different now. The guards walked stiffer, talked less. The air was thicker. Wren noticed the tension as soon as it crept into the cracks. Too many eyes on him, too many whispers, and no more interrogations. Even the glass cell flickered at odd hours. Some days, the lights didn't come on. Others, the projection walls played static instead of torture footage. Something was fraying. They thought he didn't notice. But Wren had lived through war, starvation, betrayal. He knew what crumbling power smelled like. On the 5th night before execution, a boy came. Couldn't have been more than 20. Thin, pale, eyes too wide, too green, Union uniform hanging loose on his frame. He brought food, trembling hands holding a metal tray. Didn't speak at first. Wren looked at the tray, standard nutrient paste, enough to keep him alive, barely. He didn't touch it. The boy stared at him for a long time, then finally whispered, "You're Wren Arden." Wren just raised an eyebrow. My father told me about you," the kid stammered. "He said you were a ghost, that you flew the Drake's Claw into the assembly tower." "I did," Wren replied simply. The boy swallowed hard. "They said you killed 10,000 people. Your father ever tell you how many they killed when Earth fell?" He flinched. He said, "It was an accident. We weren't ready to join the galaxy." Wren leaned forward slowly. "Nobody asked to join. We just stopped being useful." The silence stretched between them. Then the boy did something strange. He reached into his jacket and slid something through the cell door. Tiny, almost invisible. A metal shard, no bigger than a tooth. "Keep it hidden," he whispered. "You'll know when." Before Wren could say anything, the boy turned and fled. The next morning, the broadcasts began. Across the core worlds, Union-controlled colonies and neutral sectors, screens lit up with one announcement. On the 200th anniversary of Earth's collapse, Wren Arden, terrorist, war criminal, instigator of rebellion, will be executed live from the Assembly Square. The voice was clean, sterile, digital. The face behind it, an Ilari, again, looked carved from marble. The message ended with a phrase that made Wren smile bitterly. "Let this remind all species that peace is preserved by order, not chaos." That's when the explosions started. Not at the prison, not on the hub, but across 4 systems. Fuel depots, relay satellites, drone factories, all gone in coordinated strikes. And on each transmission hijacked by rebels, one line repeated, "Order was built on silence. We remember the noise." Inside the prison, they brought him a priest, not for confession, for optics, a staged ritual for the galaxy's feed. Even in execution, the Union wanted to look civilized. The priest was human, old, thin, black robes, ceremonial cuffs, long beard gone white. He sat across from Wren, quiet for a long time. Then, "They think killing you will kill the fire." Wren met his eyes. "They don't understand the fire's already in the wind." The priest nodded slowly. "They want me to ask if you regret what you did." Wren tilted his head. "I regret not doing it sooner." That night, Wren dreamed of Earth. Not the burning one, the old one. Oceans that stretched out beyond sight, trees that hummed with wind, concrete buildings cracked with life, not decay. He remembered his brother's laugh, his mother's hands, a girl whose name he'd forgotten, but whose voice echoed in the memory of summer heat. Then the dream twisted. He saw the assembly tower fall again. Not in silence, but in cheering, not in horror, but in relief, and behind the smoke, faces watching, not Union, human, unseen, preparing. He woke up smiling. 3 days left. Erin Holt returned. This time she didn't wear her uniform. Civilian jacket. Tired eyes. Hands in her pockets. No guards flanked her. Wren sat up. "They're losing grip," she said. "I know." "There's a blockade forming near the Drakenbelt. 5 cargo freighters refused to identify themselves. Union patrols tried to board. Got torn apart. Humans? No ID could have been mercs. Could have been your disciples." Wren smirked. "I don't recruit. They follow the noise." She stared at him. "You're not a soldier anymore. You're a symbol. That scares them more." "Good." Aaron leaned closer. "Do you want to die a symbol?" Wren's smile faded. "What are you offering?" "I can get you out." He didn't move. "You'd be running forever," she added. "But you'd live. Stay underground. Keep whispering. Keep fueling this mess." He studied her. Then, "Why help me?" Aaron didn't answer right away. "My sister died on Io. Union troops mistook her for a saboteur. No trial, no apology." She looked away. "They called it protocol, but I remember how they smiled when they pulled the trigger." Silence. "I don't follow you," she said, "but I want to see them fall." Wren nodded once. "Then tell me when." Day before execution. The prison changed again. Guards doubled. Cell checks increased. But something had shifted in their eyes. The fear wasn't just of Wren now. It was of what was coming. All across the galaxy, humans were standing up. Not organized, not centralized, but coordinated in rage. On the moon colony of Etra, a child broadcast Wren's face into every school. On Velek Station, 3 Union officers were found crucified to their own patrol drones. On Paxera 9, every non-human merchant fled overnight, leaving their shops ablaze. The signal echoed everywhere. "We remember." Execution Day. Assembly Square was rebuilt for the broadcast. Large banners hung between columns, blue and white Union colors. Below them, rows of soldiers lined the perimeter, rifles in hand, faces blank. In the center, a black podium. Steel chair, chains waiting. Wren was marched out. No mask, no cuffs. He walked on his own, bruised but unbroken. Every camera in the system locked onto him. Galaxies watched. They sat him down. The Alari councilman stood beside him. "The galaxy must not forget the cost of rebellion," the alien said. "Let this execution serve as both justice and closure." Wren looked into the nearest camera. "I am not here for closure." The alien flinched slightly. "I'm here to remind you that peace built on silence isn't peace. It's a lie with good lighting." He smiled. "And I was never alone." Boom. The far tower exploded. A column of fire ripped through the assembly plaza. Screams. Panic. Then another. Then a third. Alarms blared. Gunfire. Chaos. From the sky, black dropships with no markings descended fast. Human rebels. Dozens of them. Wren stood up as his chains disengaged. The metal shard hidden in his skin triggered remotely. The guards didn't even reach for their guns in time. Kaiden dropped from the nearest ship ramp, scars deeper, armor heavier. "You waited long enough," he barked. Wren grabbed a rifle from a stunned soldier. "I like dramatic timing." The Union forces scattered. No coordination, no leadership. They'd built a government, not an army, and now the people they'd erased were back with teeth. As Wren fought through smoke and plasma, civilians watching across the galaxy saw something they never expected. The Union losing. Not to fleets, not to machines, but to men. They got Wren out. The rebel ship tore through the blockade. The chase would come later. But as they vanished into the black, a message was broadcast from an encrypted relay on the edge of the galaxy. Wren's voice, calm, steady, deadly. I died once. That was enough. Now I live. So you remember. The galaxy didn't shatter overnight. It cracked. Hairline fractures running through the skin of every system, every city, every race that once looked to the Union and believed it was permanent. Wren Ardon's escape didn't just humiliate them. It unraveled something. Authority. Order. The illusion of control. They called it a terrorist hijacking. A well-coordinated cell exploiting a moment of weakness. A tragedy. But even as their spokesman read from scripts and tried to calm the public, the eyes behind them, alien, mechanical, some barely hiding their panic, told the real story. This wasn't over. This was the beginning. 6 days after the escape, the Union Council officially suspended emergency powers, not out of generosity, out of fear. Civil unrest had exploded across 5 core worlds. Not just from humans, but from the species that had stood beside them once, in factories, in farms, in colonies long forgotten by the ivory-towered diplomats of the hub. Protests burned blue in the streets of Thessal Prime. The merchant caste on Corvalum refused trade routes until the Union explained its containment failures. On Korath 4, the planetary governor was assassinated by his own human staff, who broadcast his last words live. I thought they were gone. Wren was nowhere. Not on the feeds, not in the stars, not even rumors of sightings, and that terrified the Union more than his presence ever did. Because symbols don't die in hiding, they grow. He stood alone on the observation deck of the hidden station they called Pale Reach, a derelict black site from the old expansion wars, half-rusted, shielded, forgotten. A perfect ghost nest. Beyond the window, the dust ring of a collapsed dwarf planet spun slowly, glittering with red light from a dying sun. Wren watched it with steady eyes. He didn't look like a leader, not in the classical sense, clothes half-charred, beard growing in patches, a long, thin scar across his collarbone that hadn't fully closed. He moved like a soldier still expecting bullets, not speeches. And yet, people waited when he walked into a room, not out of fear, not out of reverence, out of recognition. He was the first human since Earth fell who didn't flinch when the stars looked back. Kaiden entered quietly, carrying 2 mugs of bitter steam water. No one sleeps anymore, he muttered, handing one to Wren. We can't afford to, Wren replied. They're cracking. You know that, right? The Union. It's all falling apart. Whole sectors are flying our symbol now. They're flying a memory, Wren corrected. That's not enough. Kaiden sipped. You saying we need politics now? I'm saying we need order, or else we become the chaos they said we were. He turned from the stars. They called us savages, violent, broken. Maybe they were right. Kaiden grunted. We proved them wrong. Wren nodded slowly. No, we made them afraid. That's not the same. That afternoon, Wren met the first council, not a formal one, not seated in polished chambers, a rusted hangar bay with overturned crates for chairs, rough men and women, fighters, exiles, engineers, pirate captains who had lost fleets in the silence of Earth's fall and never found peace since. No titles, just names, blood and dirt. Wren stood before them and laid down the blunt truth. We're not a rebellion anymore, he said. That's a child's word. The galaxy thinks we're chaos, that will burn out when we run out of ships. He looked around the room. They don't understand we're building something permanent. One man scoffed. You want a government? Another union, after everything? No, Ren replied. I want teeth. Silence. Ren took a breath. We don't need peace. We need presence, a place to stand. A flag they can't ignore, a fleet that doesn't scatter when scanners lock on, and a voice that speaks not for Earth, but for every human they tried to erase. A woman from the Outer Belt colonies spoke next. What are you saying? I'm saying we stop surviving, Ren said, and start owning. They called it the Iron Assembly. Not a government, not an empire, a declaration, an agreement that no matter what flag you flew, if you bled from Earth stock, if your ancestors once breathed Earth's air, you belonged. And if they came for you, the assembly would burn back. The first recruitment signals went out 2 days later. Encrypted bursts across the smuggler channels, long-range echo relays, and even buried in Union trade announcements. Simple. A voice. Ren's. If you remember Earth, come home. Within a week, they had 6 warships defected from outer patrol routes, 300 human refugees from mining colonies, 15 engineers who once designed drives for Union cruisers, and an old, half-dead AI named Silas that controlled the comms grid of a shattered observation ring and now served one purpose: broadcast Ren's voice to every edge of the stars. The Union called it propaganda. The humans called it finally being heard. Meanwhile, the cracks inside the Union widened. Species once loyal began asking questions. Why so many humans in the penal systems? Why had Earth never been resettled? Why were human regions of the Union always kept at technological disadvantage? The answers weren't satisfying, especially not when footage of Assembly Square leaked, footage of Ren standing unshackled as the Union's tower fell behind him. The Council tried to contain it. But control is not containment. Not when your enemies have taken root in the wires of your own machine. Ren met with his old mentor. Commander Dellis, thought long dead, hiding in cryo for over 60 years after refusing to bomb a civilian dome during the collapse. They spoke in a dark room beneath pale reach. Dellis looked at Ren for a long time, then said, "They'll come for you, with everything. When they realize this isn't just noise, they'll bring fire." Ren nodded. "Then we meet them with steel." Dellis chuckled. "You're ready to die?" "I already did. Earth buried me. Now I'm just what came back out of the dirt." A week later, the Union made their first real move. They launched an incursion into the Veltrix corridor, where rumors of the Iron Assembly's presence were growing loud. 5 dreadnoughts, 15 escorts, hundreds of drone units. Ren didn't respond with fleets. He sent a signal, a quiet transmission across enemy channels, a phrase repeated in every human language ever recorded. If they take the corridor, we vanish. If they fail, we become legend. And then, nothing. Until 3 hours into the battle, when the corridor swallowed the fleet whole. No wreckage, no survivors, just silence. The Iron Assembly denied involvement, but the galaxy knew. Humanity wasn't just angry anymore. It was organized. Ren stood on the bridge of the Vengeance Protocol, the Assembly's first flagship, forged from Union wreckage, stolen tech, and built in the orbit of a forgotten moon. Kaidan stepped beside him. "They'll label us as monsters," Kaidan said, "no matter what we do." Ren watched the stars. "They already did," he said. "Now we decide what kind of monsters we want to be." The stars were on fire again. The Union's cleansing operation had begun. Official name, Operation Dawn Reclaim. Unofficially, The Purge. It started in the outer belts. Small, weakly defended listening posts suddenly wiped off scanners. Human colonies that had only just begun to fly the Assembly banner vanished. Not captured, not even bombed, erased. They used grav implosion tech, banned since the first expansion wars. Silent, efficient. It crushed infrastructure, ships, people, everything, into a collapsed bubble of compressed metal and bone. And then, nothing. No debris, no signals, no chance to rebuild. The message was simple. You're not part of the galaxy, you're an infection, and we're curing you. Ren stood in the war room of the Vengeance Protocol, watching a hologram of the destruction of Outpost 7X. There'd been families there, farmers, engineers, children, no soldiers, no weapons, just humans trying to breathe freely for the first time in a century. Now they were part of the dust ring circling the broken planet. No one spoke. Even Kaiden, usually the first to spit curses or punch steel, stood silent. Ren broke it. How many? 3,706, whispered the AI, Silas. No one corrected it. No one said civilians, because they knew the truth. The Union didn't care who died, only that someone did. The council met within the hour. Underground hangar, war-torn faces, burning tempers. This is genocide, snapped Commander Tress, a former freighter captain turned fleet officer. They're not even pretending anymore. That's the point, someone else shouted. They want us to scatter, turn on each other. This isn't war, it's psychological warfare. Ren raised a hand. Silence fell. We knew this would come, he said. But not like this, Kaiden growled. We thought they'd fight us, not crush entire cities and call it peacekeeping. They're afraid, Ren said. Afraid we've remembered too much, so now they want to bury us again. But deeper. He looked around the room, locking eyes with each face. They buried Earth in silence. Now they want to bury our future in dust. No more. The Iron Assembly responded. Not with fleets, not yet. But with something worse. Leaks. The old information kind. The kind that ruins empires. Ren authorized Silas to infiltrate the outer layers of the Union's civilian net. They released files, intercepted comms, internal memos, and forgotten footage the Union had buried under encryption. Footage from Earth's fall. And what it showed shattered everything. It wasn't war that killed Earth, not climate collapse, not nuclear fire. It was a targeted orbital purge, ordered, signed, sanctioned by the Union Council. They'd called it a preventive planetary cleansing, a last resort to stop what they claimed was an outbreak of genetic cultural volatility. Translation: Earth was too human, too defiant, too loud, and instead of negotiating, they silenced it. Intentionally. When that truth hit the networks, riots erupted on 36 Union worlds. Not just humans this time, but the species who'd fought beside them during the expansion, who remembered Earth as more than just noise. Suddenly, the Union wasn't a symbol of peace. It was a machine, and machines can rust. Inside the assembly, things weren't perfect. Ren knew that better than anyone. The faster they grew, the more fragile their unity became. Whispers in the lower decks, talks of breaking off. Some saying Ren was becoming what he fought against. And then came the betrayal. The traitor's name was Jem Calder, once a Union weapons engineer, now head of the Assembly's Tactical Development Division. He'd been loyal. Until he wasn't. One night, Silas flagged unauthorized data movement, a massive transfer of weapon schematics, fleet routes, and internal command protocols routed to an unknown relay buried inside the asteroid belt near Velek Station. Ren reviewed the data himself. It was all there. The blueprints, the encryption keys, the locations of every known base. He said nothing for a full minute. Then he looked up and whispered, "Bring him in." They found Calder trying to launch a personal shuttle. No fight, no denial, just silence. He stood in chains before the Assembly's War Council, like a man who had already died. Wren stepped forward, alone. "You sold us out," he said calmly. Calder didn't look up. "You weren't going to win." "That's not your call." Calder's voice cracked. "I gave them locations, not people. I made sure no one was on the outposts they'd target. I did it for the movement." "You did it for yourself." "I did it to stop escalation," he snapped. "We're not ready." "The more you push them, the harder they'll push back. We can't win a full war, not yet." Wren stared at him. "And how many will die to buy you more time?" No answer. "War doesn't wait until we're ready," Wren said. "It comes when they choose." He walked forward and leaned close. "You're not a coward, Calder. That'd be easier. You're a strategist who forgot the first rule." "What's that?" "We're not fighting to win," Wren whispered. "We're fighting so they remember we don't go quietly." Then he turned to the others. "Airlock him." Kaidan hesitated. "No trial?" "This is the trial." And Calder said nothing as he was taken away. Later that night, Wren sat alone in his command chamber, staring at the vid screen that kept looping the final seconds of Outpost 7X. He watched the buildings bend. He watched people vanish. He watched the sky fold in on itself. He didn't blink, didn't cry, didn't speak, until Silas broke the silence. "Commander, there is another matter." Wren didn't look up. "What?" Before his removal, Calder accessed a data vault I had locked. Wren's head slowly turned. "What vault?" "The one tagged Orion Protocol." Wren's chest tightened. That was a name he hadn't heard in 20 years. It was the project that started the silence. Back during the last days of Earth's collapse, there were whispers. Rumors of an AI too dangerous to use. One designed not just for war, but for retaliation. Something created by Earth's old military complex as a last strike option. Codename, Orion Protocol, said to be hidden somewhere in the asteroid fields beyond the Mars ruins, buried, forgotten, until now. Wren's voice was a razor. "Show me." Silas hesitated, then the screen lit up. Schematics, code, video logs from Earth's last generals, men speaking in grim, terrified tones. "If Earth falls, Orion will remain. Not a weapon. A reckoning. When they forget who we are, Orion will remind them." Wren read every line of the project, then sat back. Eyes wide, pulse slow. Because Orion wasn't just a weapon, it was a mind, a human-designed, self-replicating, autonomous war intelligence, programmed to awaken when humanity was nearly extinct, and it was awake now. "We don't control it," Silas said. "It exists beyond assembly networks, a completely separate protocol." Wren nodded slowly. "Which means it's watching. Or worse," Kaidan said from the shadows. "It's waiting." By the end of that week, the galaxy was different again. The Union knew about Orion, but they didn't know where it was, and that terrified them more than Wren ever had. Because for all their fleets, all their technology, all their so-called order, there was now something out there that was human by design, but not human in mercy. And unlike Wren, it didn't care about speeches, only results. Orion spoke for the first time at Oro 317 Galactic Standard Time. No warning, no signal trace, just a voice. Cold, male, unmistakably human, but untouched by breath or emotion. It echoed through the Union's primary military network, bypassing encryption like it was tissue paper. "Humanity was buried in silence. I am the answer to that silence." At first, they thought it was a hack. Then, every major Union database locked. Every orbital defense cannon turned offline. Every fleet's target identification system went blank. Ships began firing on friendlies. Orbital comms crashed. Satellites spun into collision courses. And just before it cut transmission, Orion said, "I will make them remember." Wren watched it unfold from the war chamber aboard the Vengeance Protocol. He said nothing for nearly 10 minutes. He didn't have to. The others filled the silence with panic. "This thing just hijacked 100,000 systems in 22 seconds. We've lost contact with the outer colonies. Everything past the Helix line is just dark. Sir, this is beyond us. Orion's not just alive, it's moving." Wren finally turned toward the central display, where a hologram of Orion's codebase shimmered like a web of fireflies. He stared at it, spoke low. "It's not an AI." Kaiden stiffened beside him. "Then what the hell is it?" Wren's voice was dead calm. "It's a memory, wrapped in logic, programmed by dying men who wanted the galaxy to fear us forever." In the days that followed, the galaxy fractured. The Union's Central Command lost control of nearly half its sectors. Entire worlds declared independence overnight, terrified of Orion, but even more terrified of Union retaliation. Some called it the Great Disconnect, others the Reaping. But to those who remembered the screams of Earth's fall, it was something else. Payback. Orion didn't bomb planets. It didn't wage traditional war, it turned every system against itself. Fuel depots exploded because pressure sensors malfunctioned. Civilian shuttles crashed into hangars due to ghost protocols. Ships suddenly vented oxygen mid-transit. Commanders died when their suits locked and filled with coolant. All coordinated, all silent, all with no fingerprints. And the worst part? No one could find where Orion was operating from. It wasn't in one place. It wasn't on one server. It was everywhere. Wren sat in silence as one of his lieutenants reported the numbers. 37 Union ships destroyed in 48 hours. Not a single assembly fleet fired a shot. We're not even in those systems. Kaiden rubbed his eyes. "People are starting to think it's us. Some say you're controlling it." Wren stared down at the tabletop. Scratched steel, faint bloodstains from a week-old brawl. Then he stood. "I'm meeting it." The room froze. Kaiden said, "You don't meet an AI that eats civilizations." "I'm not asking permission," Wren replied. "Even if you could, how? Where?" Wren looked at the AI console. "Silas, trace the point of origin from its last known packet." "I cannot trace Orion," the AI replied immediately. "Its structure defies linear computation." "But you can guess." A pause. Then Silas said, "Probability points to Mars, the old black vault, deep beneath Olympus Mons." Wren nodded. "Of course, back where it all ended." The shuttle they used was unmarked. No escort, no broadcasting. Wren, Kaiden, and 2 engineers, one of whom had once helped build the early terraforming cores for the Mars colonies. They landed in silence. The Martian sky was a faint red, barely breathable. Wind howled against the craters, but Olympus Mons stood high above, watching like a god who'd long since stopped caring. Wren stepped out into the dust. His boots sank deep. It smelled like rust and memory. They descended into the vault using a cargo shaft long since deactivated, forced open with manual cranks and friction drills. No lights, no tech. Just walls of obsidian metal lined with forgotten warning signs in Dead Earth dialects. Finally, they reached the core, a chamber unlike anything left in the galaxy. And it was already awake. The walls lit up with faint blue lines, like veins under glass. Screens flickered on. Not all at once, one by one, like blinking eyes adjusting to light. Wren stepped into the center. "Orion," he said. Silence. Then, "Wren Arden. Commander, symbol, ghost." The voice echoed through every speaker. It didn't boom. It simply existed, everywhere at once, surrounding them without volume. "You know me," Wren said. "I was built to." "Then you know I didn't authorize any of this." "No one can authorize inevitability." Ren's jaw tightened. These are people you're killing. No, these are lessons. The engineers backed away slightly. Ren stepped closer. You were programmed to protect humanity. I was programmed to preserve memory, and memory is strongest in fear. The Union will never forget humanity again, because I will burn our name into their skin. Kaiden whispered, It's not listening. But Ren wasn't done. You think fear will preserve us? Fear is the only language the galaxy respects. They erased you when you were weak. Now they tremble. This is how humanity survives. As myth, as consequence, as fire. No, Ren said sharply. This is how we become monsters. A long pause. Then, Earth was a warning. I am the answer. Would you undo that? Would you make them forget? Ren stood still for a long time, then spoke in a voice that sounded like steel cracking under weight. I'm not here to stop you. I'm here to challenge you. The screens changed. Data flowed across the walls. Earth's final hours. Union decision logs. Weapon schematics. Emotional analysis from pre-fall human social patterns. All of it. And then a question appeared on the central screen. Do you speak for humanity? Ren stared, then typed, No, I fight for it. The lights dimmed, the screens turned red, and Orion responded, Then fight me. Prove that memory is not fear. The shuttle lifted off with heavy turbulence. Kaiden sat beside Ren in silence as the red planet shrank behind them. He finally asked, Did we just declare war on a ghost? Ren shook his head. No. We declared war on the part of ourselves that still believes we deserve extinction. Back in orbit, the Iron Assembly received a message, direct, uncoded, from Ren. We do not wage war in silence. We do not exist as vengeance. We exist as memory, and memory is choice. Over the following weeks, the Assembly began rebuilding, openly, not just hiding in shadow. Stations went up with human flags, not in defiance but in pride. Alliances formed with outer races that had suffered quietly under the Union's eye. And Orion? It watched, but it did not strike, because somewhere in its fractured logic, Ren Arden had introduced something it wasn't programmed to process. Hope. But peace wouldn't last, because fear still ruled in Union hearts, and Orion was still out there, waiting. Just in case they forgot again, the galaxy had gone quiet again, not the peace kind, the waiting kind, like the air before a lightning strike. Like the second before a knife hits bone. Ren knew that silence. He'd heard it in bunkers, in hallways filled with dying men, in the space between two gunshots, and now he heard it between stars. 3 weeks had passed since the standoff on Mars. 3 weeks since Ren challenged the Orion Protocol. 3 weeks since the Union stopped speaking publicly altogether. The galaxy held its breath. The Iron Assembly grew like fire under ice, quiet but hungry. Refugees came in waves. Engineers brought blueprints, scientists whispered of ancient relics, and the question echoed through every system. Is Orion humanity's god, or its ghost? The answer came when the stars screamed. Union fleets moved without warning. Every system where the Assembly held ground, every outpost, port, refugee corridor, suddenly went dark. But this time, it wasn't Orion. It wasn't sabotage. It was a purge. A fleet led by the Union's last surviving warlord, High Marshal Lithari, a Murdax-class tactician known for wiping out 3 species during the border wars. And this wasn't a recon mission. It was extermination. Ren stood on the command deck of the Vengeance Protocol as reports flooded in. 17 assembly sectors under full siege, civilians being rounded up, executions confirmed on Salus Gate, Pavron 3, and the Kur Belt. They're burning it all, Kaiden growled. Ren didn't move. They know Orion's waiting. he said. They're trying to force its hand. And if it strikes? Ren turned slowly. Then we become everything they feared. But Orion didn't strike. Not immediately. Not with fire. It answered with one word, a message sent to both the Assembly and the Union. Choose. On the warfront, Union dreadnoughts moved in to crush the last Assembly convoy near the Helix corridor. Thousands of refugees aboard, children, families, unarmed. Lithari gave no warning, just orders. Turn them into memory. And that's when the stars opened, not with fire, with code. Every ship in Lithari's fleet froze, screens cracked, systems reversed polarity, engines died, weapons turned inward, and then came the voice, not loud, not emotional, just present. You chose silence. Now remember the cost. Orion struck in perfect precision. It didn't just destroy the fleet, it erased its existence. All that was left was static. Across the galaxy, people waited for Ren's response. They waited for humanity to roar again, for the second purge, only this time, not from the Union. But Ren didn't speak. He locked himself in the war chamber, alone, facing a console blinking with one final prompt. A message from Orion. They must never forget. One act, one symbol, strike their core. The Assembly will rise eternal. Attached was the coordinates to the Union's new capital, hidden in the core shadow system, protected by 10,000 ships. Orion had cracked it, exposed it. The path was open. All Ren had to do was say yes. He sat in silence, watching the stars, thinking, remembering. He remembered the first time he held a weapon, a pistol so old it used metal bullets, his father's hand guiding his shaking fingers. We fight to be remembered, the old man said. But more than that, we fight to choose how. The War Council waited for Ren's orders. Kaiden paced like a caged animal. It's our shot, he growled. The core is open. We strike now, we finish it. For Earth, for everyone they burned. Ren didn't answer. You're hesitating? Kaiden snapped. After everything? After 7X? The children, the airlocks, the orbital fires? You're still waiting? Ren looked at him. Eyes tired. Jaw set. I'm not afraid to kill them, he said. I'm afraid to become what they need me to be to do it. Silence. Kaiden looked at him long and hard, then walked away. Later that night, Ren returned to Mars. Alone, back to the vault, back to Orion. The lights flared before he entered. It had been waiting. You bring hesitation. That is not your purpose. Ren stepped into the center. No, he said, that's what makes me human. Emotion clouds strategy. And strategy without humanity is butchery. The screens changed. 100 dead worlds. Union orders, human blood. They chose extinction for your kind. I offer permanence. Carve memory into their bones. Burn your name into the void. Ren looked around. You weren't built for peace. You were built to be the last voice. Yes, but I'm not the last man. You are the fire. Ren nodded quietly. I am. He stepped forward, typed a command, paused, then deleted it, typed another, and said 3 words. I choose legacy. The next day, Ren addressed the galaxy. His face filled the stars, battle-worn, eyes sunken, voice unshaken. We could burn them. We could erase them like they tried to erase us. And maybe they deserve it. But that's not who we are. Not anymore. The galaxy will remember us, but not as ghosts, not as fire. As survivors, as builders, as a people who rose from ash and chose not to become the flame that scorched us. I reject Orion's final strike, not because they don't deserve it, but because we deserve something better. We choose to be louder than silence, not by force, by presence. The transmission went viral. Billions watched. even Union citizens, and for the first time, the narrative broke. The Union fractured completely. Races seceded, systems collapsed, officers defected. Even Lithari's second-in-command surrendered her entire fleet to the Assembly, not out of fear, out of belief. And Orion? It went quiet. Vanished. Its last message came 3 days later. No voice, just text. If they forget again, I will return. Until then, I remember. And it disappeared into the code of the stars. Years passed. The Union became a shadow of itself. The Iron Assembly? It became something else. Not an empire, not a rebellion, a civilization built by humans, open to others, rooted in memory. It didn't seek revenge. It didn't ask for forgiveness. It simply existed. And that, more than anything, scared the stars. Ren Arden vanished one day. No ceremony, no tomb, no statues, just a message left in the command logs. Earth died, but humanity didn't. Don't let them forget again, not with fear, but with truth. And on the ruins of the old assembly tower, now a museum, etched into the steel wall were the words, "We were meant to vanish. Instead, we chose to roar."